y'all, so in this video I'm going to be going over my bottom 10 books for 2020, and that is the bottom 10 for me. I'm sure a lot of people will love these books and have loved these books, but I'm sure you can tell from the thumbnail I've got a surprise in here. So before we really get started into this list, I want to preface this by saying that I have some of these books on this list because ultimately I read a lot of great books this year. I hardly had anything below a 3-star. I think I only had like 1 or 2 2-star books, and a lot of them were just 3-star books. So the 10th slot is technically still really good books. I had them at 3 stars, so I still consider them as good. They're just not quite for me. I didn't quite like them as much as some of the other books that I've read, so take it for what it is. We'll just go into it. So, surprisingly, in the number 10 spot, I actually have Mistborn Era 2 by Brandon Sanderson. This is such a huge shock, and honestly, this is because I rated these as 3 stars, and I still consider 3 stars good books. But for me, they just weren't quite to the caliber of Mistborn Era 1, they weren't quite to the caliber of Warbreaker, and Elantris I read in 2019, so I couldn't put it on this list, and everything else was worse. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of 3-star books. I had a lot of 4 and 5-star books that I read. Something has to be at the top of the bottom of the 10, so I put these here. I still liked them. They just weren't quite as impactful, to be honest, and I'm not a huge steampunk fan, so I think that kind of hindered me a little bit. They also put me in kind of a reading slump because it's one of those, they were so short compared to his other books that I felt like I should fly through them, but I just wasn't feeling that push to finish them, and so I ended up kind of getting into a reading slump between a couple of them. And like I said, they weren't bad. They weren't bad at all. They were still really good books. Bad for Brandon Sanderson is still good. And they just ended up on this list because I read so many other books that were great. So in the 9th place, I have the Holo Places. Now this is a book that I had put on my TBR, and I didn't realize that it was going to be a new release, and then I ended up finding it on Scribd, so I got to listen to the audio. So I don't know if any of y'all ever read the Janet Ivanovich books, like the One for the Money, Two for the Dough. I'll put a couple of examples up here. The Holo Places reminded me of those books. I quit reading those books at like number 16. The humor was just a little sitcom-y for me, and that's what I found with the Holo Places. The Holo Places was actually legitimately creepy. And that's what I was looking for in this book. I was looking for a creepy read, and that's not what I got. The parts from the other world were absolutely creepy, but then the author would kind of try to liven it up a little bit with this humor. And I did laugh. It wasn't bad humor. It's just, like I said, it was a bit sitcom-y. And sometimes it just felt a bit misplaced. Like, I was really looking for a creepy read is what the issue was. If you go into this book knowing that there's going to be some creepy elements, but also knowing that there's some humor that's going to kind of break that up, and, just supposed to be kind of lighthearted with that humor, I think you'll like it. And I think I would have liked it a lot more if I hadn't have just been looking for something just strictly creepy. I think it was legitimately a pretty good book. Like I said, I rated this one 3 stars still as well because I still liked it. It just wasn't what I was looking for, and like I said, the sitcom humor kind of got to me a little bit, but it was still pretty funny, and it was, it was a good standalone book for what it was. Number 8 is The Only Good Indians. So this book, I read it because Nick from Knickknack's Corner, he likes it a lot, and I feel like the more I think about it after reading it, the more that I like it as well. I see what it was kind of going for with what the statement was, about these Indians on this reservation and something that they've done in their past. And it does have some pretty creepy elements too. There was something that caught me completely off guard while I was driving down the road. I actually had to rewind it because it's just one of those what just happened moments. So I mean, it wasn't a bad book. Once again, like I said, just some of these have to be on the bottom even if they're still good books. And I feel like a lot of people, especially if you read horror or, you know, psychological things, I think that if you're looking for that kind of book, I think you'll like it. It wasn't bad by any means, but I was a little underwhelmed. Sometimes it felt like it was a bit meandering. And I read it on audio, so maybe that kind of had something to do with it. The cadence of the narrator was a little off sometimes, so just the way he would read sentences just didn't kind of flow for me. But all in all, still a decent book, and I think if that's the kind of book that you're looking for, you know, something a little psychological, a little bit horror-esque, I think you'll like it. But it just wasn't for me at the time. So number 7, I'm actually going to bring in the Blood of Elves. This was a really hard decision to put on this list because I want to like The Witcher. I just saw the Netflix sticker on my book. So this was kind of a hard decision for me to put on this list because I want to like this series so much. I read the first 2 short stories and I really liked the short stories. I technically did finish The Blood of Elves, but I felt like I didn't fully get it. Like, I felt like I was missing a lot of stuff. I couldn't really remember what was going on. So I decided I was going to get the physical copy because I was listening to it and try to read along with the audio. And I got about halfway through it again and just gave up again. Ultimately, I think my problem with The Witcher, like the novels, is when I first realized that they were books. It was a long time ago. I was introduced to The Witcher through the very first video game, The Witcher 1 on PC. Now, Witcher 2 and 3 came out a few years after that, and they are kind of what, especially Witcher 3, that's what kind of blew up the Witcher stories as a whole and got, you know, the Netflix series and kind of just got everybody's attention on it. So I started out with the first Witcher game and I loved it. I started playing through the second one and ended up just kind of quitting. They changed how the mechanics of the game and the camera worked, and I just wasn't a fan of it because between the first and the second game, it was just completely different. I didn't like it. But my problem is, especially starting out with the Witcher 1 game, we follow Geralt. He's the main character. He's mostly who you follow, and that's who I like. I like Geralt. That's who I want to follow. And I feel like in these books, we end up not following Geralt for long periods of time, and I don't find it as compelling because Geralt is who I like. I don't like Yennefer at all. I feel like she's very abusive. I know she has her reasons, but I just don't like her abusive ass. And I can't get over it. So it is what it is. So I feel like that's kind of the reason why I just can't quite bring myself to really like the books or kind of get further into them. It's just because we're not following Geralt the whole time, and he's the one I care about and he's the one I like. I'm going to try this eventually again, but I don't know if I'll ever actually make it through this series at this point. There's just so many other books that I'm more excited to read. I just may never get around to doing it again. So coming in at number 6 is The Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. Now, I know a lot of people do like this book, and I don't think it's a bad book. Once again, not a bad book, just not for me. I feel like it didn't really have enough. I feel like the world was really cool. It was really interesting. The setup was great. It's in New York. You have these magical houses that rule it, and they have this game where, you know, you actually kill people to try to see who is going to rule the magical world. It's a pretty cool setup. And the magic is really beautiful. I love the descriptions of the magic, what they do with the magic, the duels and things like that. I really did love that part of the book, but it was just a little bit lackluster because for me, I am a character-driven reader, not a plot-driven reader. This is mostly plot and hardly any character, at least in my opinion. At least in my opinion. I know a lot of people say that they liked the characters and that they were pretty deep. I just didn't find that. I kind of felt like I was just being told about these characters and their relationships, and I just feel like there wasn't much substance to those characters. But if you are a plot-driven reader, I think you would really like this book. I do think it was solid. Supposedly, Kat Howard is supposed to come out with a second one, but I don't know when that is going to be. I think it was supposed to be in 2020, and then COVID happened, and I just haven't gotten any other news about a sequel. I'm still going to read the sequel, but like I said, I just read so many other great books, and this was still a 3-star read for me. Still good, but something has to be in these bottom 10. So number 5 is Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. This one was a big surprise for me because Diane Setterfield also wrote The 13th Tale, and y'all know is my absolute favorite book. I think I just went into Once Upon a River with such high expectations because I loved The 13th Tale and I really, really liked Bellman and Black. Once Upon a River just didn't quite hit the same note for me. I feel like, and I know I literally just said that I'm a character-driven reader, but I feel like with Once Upon a River, there just wasn't enough plot to still carry the story forward. It was all character. Even if I prefer character work over plots, you know, we still got to have some kind of direction. And I feel like the story just kind of got a little muddied. And all in all, it was still a pretty good book. I think what really hindered my opinion of this book is my own expectations. I expected to find another favorite because it's Diane Setterfield, and I came into a book that was still solid, just not to the level that I was hoping it would be, and that is a disservice to the book itself. I would still suggest this book to anyone that likes Diane Setterfield or likes character work, likes when there's, you know, a lot of characters and you have a lot of moving pieces that kind of come together at the end. And I mean, all in all, I still like the ambiance and the atmosphere of this book. I just, you know, it just wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. Okay, so at this point, I've been playing nice. These other books, the first 6, haven't been bad books. They just weren't my favorites. These last 4 books, I rated 2 stars, or in the case of one of them, 1 stars. So these, I felt like they weren't good. So here's the legitimately bottom of my barrel here. Number 4 is Luckiest Girl Alive. This one seemed pretty interesting, and ultimately the story is good. It's, you know, it's kind of hard to, I don't want to get into too many spoilers. I will whenever I do the actual reviews for them. But with thrillers, it's hard to really talk a whole lot without giving spoilers for thrillers. So the character work in this was pretty decent. I feel like the point of this girl's story and why she is lucky to be alive and what happened to her and her story, I feel like the author wanted to kind of say something about this societal issue that we have here in the United States, and she just didn't quite go there. I don't really know what I was expecting out of it. It just kind of fell flat for me. I really don't even remember much about it because I just kind of finished the book and was like, oh, okay, sure. I don't know. I really don't feel like there was a lot of character growth. I feel like it was mostly just she had this secret and then now she's going to tell people this secret, and it wasn't really that big of a secret in the first place. I don't know. I just didn't like it. Number 3, I think, is going to surprise some people because I've actually seen it on people's top 10 lists. So that's going to be Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. It's my first Ruth Ware book. I did not like it. I felt like it wasn't creepy at all. I felt like I knew what was coming. It felt very predictable. Obviously predictable. Sometimes I don't mind if I can kind of guess what happens, but it just felt like, especially if I have to kind of work at guessing, it just felt like this was just kind of a big dull dud. But I felt like I've seen that plot line a couple of times before, and there wasn't enough to really change it to make it worth my time in the end. But once again, with thrillers, you can't not finish the book because sometimes the plot twist is what makes the book worthwhile. So a lot of times I don't DNF thrillers. I do continue listening through because the beginning of the book may not be that great, but once you get to the plot twist, it kind of flips everything around and you're like, oh, okay, I see what happened, and it makes it a good book. This case just wasn't it. It was really boring. I do plan on giving Ruth Ware another shot. I don't really know what I'm going to read by her, but I will pick up some other books because I have heard some people say that was probably one of their least favorites by her. So maybe I'll like something else. We'll see. So for number 2, Bring Me Back. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think I've already talked about this in a mini review, but it's not worth you reading it. So I'm just going to kind of spoil it just a little bit. So if it's on your reading list, just kind of skip through until this timestamp, because I'm just going to flat out say it. Dissociative identity disorder is not a great plot twist anymore. It's not. It's so overdone at this point that it just doesn't even, it just ruins a book for me. It's a bad twist. It's bad. It's been done before. It's been overdone at this point. It wasn't done differently at all in this book. It was just bad. It just, I did not like it at all. Yeah, I'm really over that trope. And once again, I wouldn't have known until the end, because you have to wait for the twist, and that twist was just garbage. Just garbage. And that leads me right into The Other Misses. Kind of the same thing. My daughter and I listened to The Other Misses, which is number 1 on my list, and this is the book that I gave a 1 star. Bring Me Back and Turn of the Key and Luckiest Girl Alive, I all gave 2 stars. This book I gave a 1 star. My daughter and I listened to it together, and we both hated it. Hated this book so much. I don't understand why it's getting a Netflix movie, to be honest. I don't get it. My daughter and I are going to have a video of a full review of it together, but she kind of doesn't want to be on video, and I also don't know if I feel comfortable with her being on video, especially if she's not comfortable. You know, I don't want to force her to be on camera, but I also think it might be kind of weird if I'm talking to someone that's not on camera with me. So we may have an avatar or something that she draws for herself. I'm not really sure what we'll do for it, but she does want to be in the video with me to kind of talk about what went wrong with The Other Misses and why it just wasn't great. The writing style, I feel like, really brought this book down, which, like I said, we'll go into more in the review, but the writing just wasn't very good. It just it was a lot of telling, a lot of restating things, kind of repeating itself. And it has a trope that I hate. The twist was the trope that I hate the most in thrillers at this point. So, you know, just not worth the read. I don't even know if I'll watch the Netflix movie. Like I said, we're both just really confused as to why it's going to be a movie in the first place. And I'm not sure how they're going to pull it off. I may watch it just to see how they're going to pull it off, to be honest. I don't know. But that is the end of my bottom 10 books for 2020. And let me know if you read any of these books, if you liked them, or if you agree, disagree. You know, let me know down in the comments how you felt about them. And let's have a better reading year. Or I want to have more struggles with bottom 10 books, just like I did this year. So, y'all are as good as gold. Y'all take care. Bye.